Alright, starting off my presentation, I chose to present on someone named Georgia O'Keeffe, an artist from the early 1900s, and present on why I think she deserves to be highlighted in our APUSH textbooks. So, in a time where it's really easy to get lost in the stress of events and things that may have had a negative effect on society throughout our history, I thought it would be really important to touch on a positive addition and growth that occurred in our history in the early 1900s that has left a permanent impact on the art world, with O'Keeffe's art still acting as a source of inspiration and admiration for present-day artists. Starting right off with contextualizing my topic, which is around the late 1800s to early 1900s, America was coming off of the high from the Second Industrial Revolution and the Gilded Age, and there was a lot of industrial and economic growth as railroads grew in popularity, connecting both sides of the country. It was a major time of growth and change for the United States, which at the time also witnessed the growth of Art Nouveau. So, Art Nouveau was a movement in the art world born in response to the established dominance of classical styles and their really rigid formal structures throughout the 1890s to 1910s. Art Nouveau influenced art and architecture, especially in the applied arts and illustration, which grew in popularity with the post-impressionism and symbolism eras that were kind of fading away at this time. As a specific art style grew, a cohesive art style began to form, contributing to the unique society in America as we're kind of differentiating our styles from Europe. Although Art Nouveau was a short-lived movement acting as a precursor to modernism, it emphasized function over form and really changed the course of the art world and expectations that were present for artists at the time. So currently on the board, we have 3 paintings, I believe all done by Monet, and we can see he really uses a lot of the same colors, and these are really fluid and beautiful paintings, but we will soon explore how Georgia O'Keeffe really stood out from these and how her paintings really made her stand out in the art world and broke expectations that were present for artists at the time. Exploring the question that states to what extent did Georgia O'Keeffe impact the growth of modernism in the art world through her radical and unique artistic styles, I will now go on to show you 5 documents that I thought really showed the significance of O'Keeffe and why she was such a significant person in the art field at this time. For my first document, which was an obituary written about O'Keeffe, the author wrote, "O'Keeffe left her mark on the history of American art and made it possible for women to explore a new gamut of symbolic and ambiguous imagery." This quote shows that O'Keeffe not only had a significant impact on the growth of modernism through her radical art styles, but also stood out from the crowd because she was turning out to be a successful female artist, which was pretty rare at this time. She was proof that a woman can be as, or even more successful as a man, even in the same field. Trying to make a place for herself in a male-dominated society was tricky, but O'Keeffe stood out from the others and ended up getting her work honored in many different museums, even having a museum named after her. Moving on to my second document, which also happens to be an obituary, the author explains quite a bit about the history of Georgia and her impacts on society. The author explains how O'Keeffe greatly impacted the growth of modernism, partly due to her unique styles that really stood out from other artists at the time. Because O'Keeffe focused more on painting landscapes and animals, as the slide showed before this, she stood out from other painters during the period who were painting more classical impressionism paintings like Monet. Believing that O'Keeffe was the undisputed doyenne, meaning she was really part of this crucial phase in developing American modernism, O'Keeffe was a key figure in developing art standards in American society, which were still really shifting and changing at this time. My third document that shows the growth of modernism due to O'Keeffe is, you guessed it, Another obituary, which called O'Keeffe a pioneer in American art. Claiming her art was fueled by, quote, emotion and clarified by imagination, end quote, she was seen as a strong spirit and a revolutionary force for her time. She soon became most known for exotic flower paintings, as we've gone over prior to this slide, standing out from all other Impressionist artists at the time. This document shows the point of view of the public and how they really saw O'Keeffe as this radical pioneer, as the newspaper says, really shaping what art meant in America and impacting the growth of modernism in society. My fourth document, which is pictured on the right side of the screen, presents a letter that O'Keeffe wrote to her husband. Although the handwriting is a bit illegible, it shows O'Keeffe's side of a conversation as she and her husband discussed the strategies that museums use to select and collect work to display from artists. While O'Keeffe's husband believed that a museum should only feature the artist's best work, O'Keeffe thought the museum should show an evolution of progress from an artist, giving more appreciation and proof of their hard work. This letter shows that having traveled the world and worked in many different places, O'Keeffe had views and opinions that differed from a lot of the people she was around, even her own husband. This is significant because it shows that she wasn't afraid to be the odd one out, and she wasn't afraid to follow what she believed in. Between her abstract school paintings for her values, O'Keeffe made sure to never shy away from doing what her heart wanted to. For my fifth and final document, we have a quote from O'Keeffe herself. So O'Keeffe goes on to say, "Two walls of my room in the Abiquiu house are glass, and from one window I see the road towards Española, Santa Fe, and the world. The road fascinates me with its ups and downs and finally its wide sweep as it speeds towards the wall of my hilltop to go past me. I had made 2 or 3 snaps of it with a camera. For one of them I turned the camera at a sharp angle to get all the road. It was accidental that I made the road seem to stand up in the air, but it amused me, and I began drawing and painting it as a new shape. The trees and the mesa beside it were unimportant for that painting. It was just the road." This quote shows that O'Keeffe had a very radical and unique way of seeing and painting the world around her. O'Keeffe was a unique artist in that she got inspiration from the trees and landscapes around her, using these bright colors and even animal skulls as objects to display in her art. She painted what she saw in the world as she traveled around to different countries, proving she was a pioneer in creating this whole new type of modern art. This was a very unique and surprising way to paint at the time, which also helped her gain all this popularity and recognition in a field that was really diluted with these similar aesthetics and more impressionist paintings, which also helped her stand out from other artists. This helped her pave a way for new art to get recognized in this era of modernism she helped develop in this time.
And when it was time to go home, I felt I hadn't started on the country. And I wondered what I could take home that I could continue what I felt about the country. And I couldn't think of anything to take home but a barrel of bones. So when I got home with my barrel of bones to Lake George, I stayed up there quite a while that fall and painted. That's where I began, that's where I painted my first skulls, from this barrel of bone. And first I painted a horse's head. And then I got this cow's head. And I had the cow's head painted against the blue. And I thought, well, I have to do something else about that. And that was at the time that the men were all talking about the great American novel, the great American play, the great American... Oh, it was the great American everything. And I thought they didn't know anything about America. A lot of them had never been across the Hudson. So I thought, I'll make my picture a red, white, and blue. I'll make it an American painting for these people that don't go across the Hudson. And this was my painting. I put a red stripe down each side. Entertained me, but I don't think anybody else caught on to it for quite a while.